Did your narcissist rage at you? Now, I know I've done different videos about this. I know I've talked about rage multiple times and that switch that flips and all of a sudden how it goes from 0 to 100 and the narcissist is just blowing up. But like, what happened during the rage to you? The book that I've been reading, The Narcissist in Your Life by Julie Hall, has got some examples that I want to kind of talk through a little bit for you today. Okay? And this is just words and words from different people. It says, what a damage list from survivors. A car windshield and the grocery cart that he threw into it. He drove a $25,000 John Deere tractor through the garage door. My wall-to-wall living room window. He smashed my MacBook Pro on the floor in front of our children when I didn't take his food out of the oven in time. He killed my cat. A ceiling fan with a bar stool that he also broke. Empty wine bottles. He smashed an acoustic guitar on our street and left it there. After I confronted him about suspected infidelity, he broke the dining room table by throwing it across the room and then hurled a coffee cup right through the oven door. And yes, he was cheating again. She broke my will to live. My ex once punched a hole in the wall and then ripped an entire 4x8 foot sheet of plywood down. I'm excellent at drywall work, thanks to him. I lost count of how many cell phones. My heart, my soul, my self-esteem, my happiness, my confidence. His favorite throw was throwing my daughter and me out of the house into the cold. He burnt all my clothes, punched holes in the doors, emptied the bank accounts. She ripped up my journals, a pole over my head, my dog's ribs. He threw out my dad's ashes. He broke his hand punching the wall. Our children's toys. My ribs, feet, jaw, fingers, kneecaps, eye sockets, teeth, and nose, but never my will to survive. It's quite the list. And I'm sure the list from survivors out there, whether it's people in the comments or people just watching this video, are much longer than that. And maybe even more insidious and devious than that. Narcissistic rage, oftentimes people look at that and they say it's demonic, or they say that it's, of the devil and like all these different things because of how crazy it is. And sometimes people look at it and they're like, how is someone able to do that? How is someone able to go from 0 to 100? How is someone able to hurt the ones that they love? The thing is, when it boils down to it, you have to be able to look at it and you have to understand that the love that you think is there is not. Because love doesn't do that. Love doesn't impact people's lives the way a narcissist does. Sometimes people know and they say, like, okay, like a narcissist actually doesn't love other people, and that's true. But at the same time, narcissists are not in love with themselves. They don't have healthy self-love. They don't take care of themselves. They don't try to get help. They don't follow through with change. They don't work on themselves. They don't get accountable or vulnerable to see how they need to grow. And so when it comes down to it, narcissists aren't capable of love without taking a look at themselves and working on themselves first. So when it comes to the family system, when it comes to the kids, people are wondering, do they actually love me? Do they actually care? You have to look at their actions. You have to look at what they're demonstrating. Love is not just words. Oftentimes people look at it and they're like, but they say that they love me. There's a lot of people on this list where the narcissist said that they loved them as well before they damaged and destroyed so many different things. Did your narcissist do this? Did they destroy things in your life? Not just your ego or your self-worth or your confidence, but did they destroy things around you with the violence that comes from that rage? Oftentimes people ask, they're like, does the narcissist actually know what's going on? And I said yes. They know what's happening. They know what's going on in the moment. The thing is, a lot of times they don't know how to stop it because of the story that's going through their head, because of the thought that's happening. And it just keeps happening over and over and over again. It almost feels like that idea of like seeing everything red, where almost like they can't control it, but they still know it's happening. The thing is, when a narcissist gets into that rage mode, when they get so violent, so upset, everything is justified. and they're trying to get past a feeling, whether that's shame, whether that's just the anger, whether that's the devaluation of how they're feeling about themselves, like whatever it is, a lot of times it comes back to the fact of, hey, I have shame about myself. You just made me feel shame. I do not know how to process it, so I'm going to throw, scream, and rage. Because ultimately it comes back to that shame aspect and the narcissist ego. You see so much of anger being tripped by ego. Ego, the idea of respect, the idea of like commitment even. And you see that just flip of a switch. They gave the illustration here of someone didn't take this food out of the oven in time and he broke her MacBook. Like that type of a thing where all of a sudden it just switches so fast. You see this happen a lot of times in narcissistic families when a child either growing up or on purpose disrespects the other parent. When they disrespect the narcissistic parent, you'll see that narcissistic parent oftentimes just flip that switch and go from that 0 to 100 like instantly because their ego is slighted. Because in that moment, they felt that slight or that dig from that other person, or even they felt humiliated. This is something that I have to work on a day-to-day basis. We have a 3-year-old. So yeah, there's going to be times when she's very disrespectful and doesn't even realize it. Or there's going to be times that she's finding her independence and is saying no when I'm telling her to do something, and that can be very triggering. That can be something that wants me to jump to rage really quick. But if I jump to rage really quick, that's not going to create a safe environment for her. That's not going to create a safe environment for her to be able to process her feelings and emotions. Now, at the same time, it also gets very hard sometimes with parenting with my wife. Because there's times when I'm trying to talk to our daughter, or maybe I'm trying to work on myself, kind of working through the situation, and my wife might come in and try to be able to help, and in that moment, it triggers shame. Triggers humiliation. It triggers that self-talk of like, what are you saying? Like, I'm a bad parent, like I'm an awful person, like I'm making progress here, and it just spirals out. And having to go back and like re-ground myself of like, hey, she's trying to help. She's young and doesn't understand. Take a moment and work on myself. But it is so easy to flip that switch and to want to go to rage as fast as possible because of being inconvenienced. Because of having that ego hit. A lot of times you'll see rage that starts to come out in the family system when there's a kid that gets born. Or when a wife gets pregnant, because that ego gets hit. You're no longer paying attention to me. You're no longer taking the time about me. It's not all about me. Now it's about someone else. And that ego takes a hit, which puts rage even closer to the surface because they want that attention and they're not getting it. And so you'll see that rage lash out. How did the narcissist rage at you? Put some comments below of how they rage. It doesn't have to be super long. Just put in really quick how they rage at you, because more people need to understand that they're not alone. It's part of why this channel exists, because there's so many people on a day-to-day basis that they come to terms with what narcissism is, and they're like, I never understood this. Whether they heard narcissism 20 years ago, whether they heard it yesterday, so many people are still coming to the table saying like, I never knew this, I never understood. And they're starting to get clarity. And they're starting to get hope for themselves of being able to grow and change. Not hope for the narcissist, but hope for themselves of understanding, hey, this is what's happened to me. And oftentimes that rage is one of the hardest things to process. It is one of the hardest things to go through, because then at the end of the day, you get so beaten down, you don't know what to believe. And you're not sure how to grow. When people get out of the narcissistic relationship, a lot of times they start to question themselves. A lot of times they start to doubt. And that's one of the things that I try to work with people, because they're either doubting themselves because they're going through a trauma bond, or they're detoxing from the narcissist. This is when the person thinks like, hey, like there's peace here because I'm not getting actively abused. I'm out of the relationship, but it doesn't feel peaceful. Or maybe they're sitting there and they're waiting like, maybe I could have done something different. Like maybe I just didn't love him enough. Maybe I just didn't give her enough time. Maybe I should have waited for him to change some. Maybe I could have got her into therapy one more time. And then sometimes the thoughts turn even darker and more toxic of, well, maybe I caused this. Maybe I created the narcissism in the other person. Maybe I'm the narcissist. And all these thoughts will start to plague you and go over you, and you'll start to wonder, like, are you crazy? Like, what's going on? You've never experienced this. Something's happening. You're not really sure what's going on because of the rage and the craziness fog that the narcissist puts on you. If that's you today and you're not sure what's going on, I would love for you to reach out. You can go to my website, rawmotivations.com, click on one-on-ones, and we'll be able to talk. Be able to sit down, walk through what narcissism is, be able to answer questions of possibly what your ex or what your spouse is thinking, to be able to give you healing, growth, and change. Because I try to help people like identify what's going on, to get down below the surface and figure out the story that they're believing, be able to change their mindset so they can grow, heal, and change in a different values, in a different way than the narcissistic household or relationship that they've been stuck in for so long, that puts them hypervigilant on the narcissist and doesn't ever give them time to grow for themselves. Are you missing your growth? Are you missing the opportunity to change on a day-to-day basis because you're in a narcissistic relationship? Because you're with someone who's raging out at you? Please get out. Please be safe. And please don't give hope to someone who isn't showing it on a day-to-day basis through their behaviors and actions.